Hey everyone, and welcome to the second vlog from our trip to Philadelphia after seeing Independence Hall. In the last video, today we're starting this one with the building that served as Congress for about a decade.
Constitution was written and signed September 17, 1787. The question about that Constitution is, will it work? And if it works, will the people accept it as a law of the land? And so it's ratified in 1788. The first Congress met in New York City, and according to the Constitution, they had to choose a permanent location for the federal city, and they chose a location that is now District of Columbia. And there was nothing there. So in the Residence Act, the Congress says we will come to Philadelphia in 1790 and we're going to leave in 1800. And that's precisely what they did. And the city of Philadelphia offered a brand new county courthouse for the use of the U.S. Congress. And they met here for those 10 years. When the House moved in, they moved in over here. There were 65 members in the House, and the walls of the building ended. Upstairs was the U.S. Senate, which is not open today. But the House is based on population, and what must we do every 10 years, according to the Constitution? The census. And so they counted the people, and they had to add over 40 seats, so the county enlarged the new county courthouse so that the House could fit. And we have restored it to look like a bed. We use this piece of information. So that's how we know you're sitting in James Madison's seats. How does it feel to be sitting in James Madison's seats? And this was discovered in 1972. So when this became a national park site, back in the 1950s, we started collecting anything we could find that was associated with the building to restore it and furnish it. So where you're sitting, this is all reproduction. However, this large chair on the Speaker of the House's platform, the chair is original. And then we took the 26 chairs that we found, we reupholstered them for the Senate upstairs. And that's what the Senate looks like. And we're doing some restoration work up there. Red leather chairs, lamb skin as opposed to cow hide down here. So where would you rather be sitting, here or in the Senate? That's being a member of the House or the Senate. Nice up there. Some people said the Senate had unnecessarily fine furniture. They said the U.S. Senate put on airs of aristocracy. What do you think? Does the Senate put on airs of aristocracy? Hey, you're in the House. You can talk about it all you want. That's them and that's us down here, right? Now, the Senate was chosen by the state legislature, and you have a 6-year term. That's the way the Constitution was written. It changed in 1913. Today, we will vote for senators. Back in those days, senators were selected. If you're sitting in the House, you're going to be elected by the electors, you know, the voters, and you will be representing 30,000 people. That's the size of the congressional district. So how does it feel to be a member of the House? Good? You get $6 a day. That's okay, $6. Of course, the rule in here is that if you don't show up on that day, you don't get paid the $6. What do you think? Is that an incentive to get our colleagues to come to work? Do you think we, members of the House, should make that a permanent rule for the House of Representatives in perpetuity? Shall we vote on it? Everybody agree and say aye. Aye. Right. This is a hard-working Congress. It's a good thing, too, because unlike the Senate, which had closed-door proceedings, the House always had a common gathering. So who's sitting up there? The people, the press, and petitioners. You know what they want? They want us to change the Constitution. They want us to introduce articles because they say this Constitution is missing something really important, the Bill of Rights, right? So when the first Congress met in New York City, James Madison was the head of a committee to write a Bill of Rights. He and his committee wrote 17 articles. Congress whittled it down to 12 articles, passed them on to the states, and within 2 years, December 15, 1791, we get a Bill of Rights. So far, so good. Now, one of Mr. Madison's original articles was finally ratified in 1992. It's now the 27th Amendment. Has anyone been around since 1992? Come on now, I know you've been around since 1992. Right? Do y'all remember the Constitution being changed? I didn't. I admit, I did not notice that the 27th Amendment was ratified by the states. This is why. I didn't think it had anything to do with me. It says Congress can vote itself a pay raise. Guys, if you could vote yourself a pay raise, would you do it? Yeah. Every day? Let's vote on it. Everybody who thinks they deserve a pay raise today, say aye. Aye. Just getting more energy out of this Congress every day. Yeah, it reminds me of a quote Mr. Madison said. He says in Federalist Paper 51, we're giving you a Constitution to check and balance power between three branches of government, because if men were angels, no government would be necessary. So when he wrote that article that's now the 27th Amendment, it says this: Congress can vote itself a pay raise, but it doesn't go into effect until an election has intervened. Uh-oh. You all just voted yourselves pay raises. If your constituents disagree with your pay raise, what can they do in the next election? Yes, and then who gets to come back? Your successor, who then gets the pay raise. What do you think? Is that a good check? Yes. It's called a check and balance. Not a check that kind of put in the bank. But that's how it works. Because who gets the last word? We, the people, by voting. And 4 of the amendments talk about who gets the vote. Number 19, one of my favorites. Ladies, do you like number 19? Mm-hmm. It took women 80 years to get the right to vote, ladies and gentlemen. 1920, the 19th Amendment. Now, speaking of voting, let's talk about a pivotal moment here in this building. When they were writing the Constitution next door, they spent a lot of time on the executive branch. But all of them really know that deep down, who's going to be the president? George Washington. In fact, Benjamin Franklin, who was 81 years old, he died in 1790, the year they moved in here. He was 84. Next door, and they put a bust on him up here. Next door, he says, well, we know the first president will be a good one, but no one knows what sort will come afterwards. Everybody knows it's going to be George Washington. And the reason is that George Washington, not only did he win the war, he won the peace. And the way he did that is because at the end of the war, unlike other military leaders, he didn't become the king of the United States. He didn't become the emperor like Napoleon would later do. He laid down a sword and went home and went back to see this Congress, civilian control of the government. That's why we may trust him. He's proven that he can be trusted with power. So sure enough, he's elected to be our president, and he wins unanimously. He serves his first term. He wrote a farewell address. And people started talking to him, writing to him, and saying, you cannot leave, because we're not ready. It's too shaky. So we need you to steady us. In fact, the way Thomas Jefferson wrote it, his former Secretary of State, the North and the South can hang together if they can hang on to you. So elections were held, and George Washington won again, unanimously. So on the second floor in the Senate area, he took his second oath of office, and he served another term. Now, folks, I have a portrait of George Washington. You may not be familiar with it. This This is a life portrait of George Washington, painted in the 7th year of his administration. Does that man look like he wants a third term? You know, he looks tired. How old do you think he is?
50.
50? I just want to do a little check here. Is 50 old to you? What do y'all think? Is 50 old? No. I don't think so either, but I'm biased. A little old? How old is old?
62.
Well, then he's old. He's 63 in this picture, okay? But I got some more information for you. This painting was painted by a young man. This is his first professional commission, and his name was Rembrandt Peale. And here he is, and he's 18 when he paints it, and that's how old he is in this picture. You don't think this is ageism in the 18th century? This is an 18-year-old looking at this man saying he's old. But this man lives to be well into his 80s. And when he turns about the same age as Washington, this is he at 64, who looks younger. Rembrandt does a self-portrait. How come he looks so good, he makes Washington look so bad?
Medication, medical stuff, got better.
Who's probably more older?
Maybe he doesn't have as much stress as the president. All right, but then, look, he takes this picture and he paints Washington decade after decade. This is 1840. George Washington painted by Rembrandt Peale. How does George Washington get so much younger the older Peale gets? Yeah.
Yeah, better.
What else about George Washington? You see he's looking to the future. He looks tired here of the future, right? You see he's got a halo. First in peace, first in war. Or actually, it's first in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his countrymen. He becomes our national hero. And part of the reason is, on March 4, 1797, George Washington sat there. All of Congress was here. The 6 Supreme Court justices sat there. Public gallery was filled. They had chairs on the floor here. Ladies were even here. Standing on the Speaker of the House's platform, John Adams gives a 15-minute inaugural address. The first peaceful transfer of power from one president to the next occurred here, March 4, 1797. John Adams gives a speech. He steps down. The Chief Justice Supreme Court stands up, administers the oath of office, which is the only one written into the Constitution, the executive. He swore he would protect, preserve, and defend the United States Constitution, and he walked out the door. That's it. Now, lucky for us, but unlucky for them, Abigail Adams was not here. She was caring for her mother, who was deathly ill. So she wasn't here to be present for her husband's inauguration. So he wrote about it and told her how his day went. Do you guys do that around the dinner table? How was your day today? How was your inauguration, right? He told her that everybody was commenting on the trickling eyes. He thought maybe they were crying because the old president was leaving, and now he was the new president. They love George Washington, and they don't love me. Or was it, he said, because there's been an exchange of presidents without tumult? The peaceful transfer of power. The only person who seemed to be really happy was George Washington. He thought he could read George Washington's mind, and he thought George Washington was thinking, as they're looking at each other, "Ah, you are fairly in, and I am fairly out. Now we'll see which of us will be the happiest." Have you ever been in that situation before? You take on somebody's job or the chore, and they look really happy to get out of it. I have. Now, George Washington wrote us a farewell address. He advised us to avoid entangling a sectionalism, that is north, south, east, west, and avoid the baneful effects of the spirit of party. How will we do? And in those days, whoever got the second most votes, electoral votes, became your vice president. So how do y'all think that might work nowadays?
Yeah.
Would it work? Do you think it worked back then?
Yes.
Not well.
You know why? Men are not angels. Who lost that election by 3? Who wanted to be the president? Thomas Jefferson. He becomes the head of a party calling itself the Democratic Republican Party. And John Adams is a Federalist. So you know how that worked? It didn't. So, when we took this picture, and we looked, we said, well, why is Madison sitting next to this guy named Macon, who's from North Carolina, and this guy, Zephaniah Swift, he's from Connecticut. Why do people sit next to each other, we said. So what do y'all think? Why do people sit next to each other?
To remove to remove regional bias.
Well, sir, you're so idealistic. I admire you're idealistic, but it's politics. They sat next to each other because they share the same political views. So we color-coded everybody and the party affiliation. The purple ones are Democratic and Republican, the Federalists were yellow. So when George Washington warns us about the baneful effects of the spirit of party, it's already starting. And we've been living with it ever since. Because that's human nature. But it's still going on. And it's an ongoing story. Will the Constitution work? Will the people accept it as a law of the land? We're still here. We're still using it. But it's still an experiment. That's what Dr. Franklin said. We are making experiments. And we still are.
So this pretty nondescript house right here in downtown Philadelphia on the corner of 7th and Market is where Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. 249 years ago, he wrote it in this building here, which is across the street now from Dunkin' Donuts, and there's a bus stop right in front of it. So apparently it hasn't been opened in years, even though the Park Service does own it. I guess they figure more people want to see Independence Hall and Congress and those places than just a house where Thomas Jefferson happened to write the Declaration of Independence. So apparently this frame here was the location of the president's house when Philadelphia served as the center of government. This would have only been parts of George Washington's presidency and parts of John Adams' presidency. Then he would have moved to the White House during his term. It's kind of a weird setup here. They have these flat screen TVs just out in the elements, but hey, I guess it's a unique way to display history. So I knew Old St. Joseph's Church wasn't open today, that they weren't having any services today. But as we walked past, they just had their little courtyard was open for visitors. So we were able to just walk up and see a little bit of what they have here. And this is an historic church as well. But we really wanted to see St. Mary's, which we saw a little earlier in the day. So that building poking up over there is the old U.S. Customs building. However, a lot of you may recognize it from the original 1984 Ghostbusters. Yes, that movie took place in New York City, but they loved the Art Deco style of this building so much, they used it for the top of Dana's building, where they had the final scene where they fought against Gozar. So here in Philly, you actually can see the building from Ghostbusters, which took place in New York. It was such an inspiration seeing the Irish Famine Memorial in Philadelphia for a couple reasons. Of course, 3 years ago, I was in Ireland right now to walk Ireland's National Famine Way to raise money and awareness in the fight against domestic violence. But I walked the same path a lot of these famine refugees walked to get to Dublin and take boats to the United States. But more personally, the first Doherty to land in Pennsylvania, I believe, did land in Philadelphia, got off the boat in Philly, probably just feet from this memorial, before heading further into the state to start a farm. So this has a lot of personal meaning for me specifically. And here also at Penn's Landing is Philadelphia's Korean War Memorial. I really love memorials to the Korean War because I think it often gets forgotten between everybody sort of being rah-rah, go-go about World War II and knowing the importance of World War II, and then all the controversy about the Vietnam War. The silent generation kind of fought in Korea and didn't really get recognized, so it is always nice to have memorials like this. They didn't choose to go, most of them. Most of them were drafted. Most of them were already in the military, so whether you agree with the reasons for fighting or not, it is still important to honor those who did serve in Korea. a couple blocks away from Independence Hall and everything going on with the founding of the U.S. and all of that patriotic stuff. A couple blocks away, Edgar Allan Poe's Philadelphia home. And here's a little information on it. It has started to rain today, and the house is not open, so we are just literally stopping by outside and taking a quick look. But they do have this cool raven statue on display. I tell you what, let me know if you like this new type of travel vlog. With me being further away from the theme parks, I'm gonna have a lot more history vlogs, and I'll do some more baseball vlogs. I wanna know if you're enjoying them, so like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.